I learned how to be successful, but I never learned how to be healthy.
I'm successful, but I'm not happy, and I'm definitely not healthy. I had this deep-seated fear that I was never good enough. It was never enough, and I was always chasing more and more. At some point, we start to believe the mask is more important than the real person underneath it. It all came collapsing down.
Howard Stribbell is a globally recognized educator and leadership expert who built and scaled international schools across Asia while overseeing millions in impact, and now speaks openly about the hidden cost of success, helping leaders rebuild their health, identity, and purpose beyond achievement.
We'll sacrifice our personal well-being, our mental health, our relationships until it hits our work. And then once it hits our work, we're like, oh, wait, something's wrong. Your team doesn't get the version you want them to have. Your team gets the version of you that shows up every day.
Alchemists, if you're listening and want to support the show right now, head over to our YouTube channel and subscribe. Growing the channel lets me bring on more incredible guests like the one we have today. Let's get back to our episode. Dr. Stribbell, before we get into everything, I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I've been going through your story, your work, and there's a lot of depth there that I'm excited to unpack today. There's one line you wrote in the intake that I've been thinking about since I've read the intake form that you did for me. You said, I learned how to be successful, but I never learned how to be healthy. When did you first realize that your success was actually costing you something?
Yeah, I think that's been a slow buildup. I was very lucky in that I had people see leadership in me and push me to leadership. We often say, people either get pushed into leadership or fall into leadership. I think I did both. I was always underqualified for the positions that I had. I was always the youngest person in the room or in the role. But I was lucky I had people that believed in me. But it started to chip away, and it was probably my first 8 years in Alberta. The job got to be too much. And then I went overseas to Asia, and 12 years into it, the job was huge and big, and I was looking at making a move to run multiple schools, and I had a setback. And then just recently, the last year and a half, my second relationship failed, and that really made me rethink what was happening. I was hugely successful. I had 8 schools that I was supervising. I had 3 educational companies I was running. I was on multiple boards. I was flying business class everywhere. But yeah, I wasn't healthy. And what happens is it sneaks up on you. You let it take bites away at your mental health, your physical health. I don't have time to work out today. Then it starts to impact your relationships. It's okay if I miss this volleyball game. Oh, I have to be at this conference. I can't be at this activity with my family. And that hurts our relationships. But the reality is we don't actually acknowledge it until it hits our work. We'll sacrifice our personal well-being, our mental health, our relationships until it hits our work. And then once it hits our work, we're like, oh, wait, something's wrong. And so for me, then it took 18 months to start unpacking that and realizing, wow, I'm successful, but I'm not happy, and I'm definitely not healthy. And then rebuilding for the last 18 months.
Were you aware in that moment, or is this only in hindsight that you're seeing this?
I was aware, but I was hiding it. And so, I had this deep-seated fear that I was never good enough, and I was using work to try to prove that I was good enough. And so, more schools, more revenue, more publications, more prestige, more achievement, getting my PhD, but it was never enough. And, I talk a little bit about how we have masks, and we all have masks growing up. We put on a mask for our family so that they can be, happy with us. We put on a mask to fit in at school. Then when we become teachers and leaders, we put on that leadership mask. But at some point, we start to believe the mask is more important than the real person underneath it. And I was aware that I was hiding and compensating and not dealing with things as well as I should, but I kept sacrificing it because I wanted more and more achievement. And this was eventually, it all came collapsing down. And my first relationship ended 8 years ago. Um, and I thought I could rebuild it. I thought, it's not a big deal. I don't need to address this stuff. But then a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now, I was like, no, it's the same problems. I really need to stop and get this under control.
I appreciate you starting there. I think a lot of leaders feel that, but don't always have the language for it. For those of you that are just getting introduced to Dr. Howard Stribbell, he's a small town Alberta educator who began his teaching career in Milk River. After 8 years, he made a bold move to found Alberta's first accredited international school in Macau, often called the Las Vegas of Asia. That success expanded globally. He went on to help establish schools in China, Cambodia, and Thailand, and at one point overseeing 8 independent schools and 3 educational companies, impacting more than 5,000 students, 500 teachers, generating over $100 million in revenue. But behind the scenes is a deeper story around pressure, identity, and the hidden cost of leadership, which he now shares through his work and his upcoming book, The Loneliest Seat. Howard, welcome to the Elemental Educator podcast. It is my pleasure to have you on. I would say today, it's Friday where you are, it's Thursday where I am. I'm happy to have you on.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here, Tyler, and great to meet you. I think you're doing some great things.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One of the ways that we run the show is we go through 4 elemental segments on a bit of a journey here. The first one is going to be Earth, where we get into what we value, what we stand on. And so without further ado, let's get into grounded moments.
3, 2, 1.
Howard, in the intake form, you shared this quote: "I sacrificed everything on the altar of achievement, but it was never enough." What were you chasing that enough was supposed to feel like?
Yeah, I think I had this void inside me that said that I wasn't good enough. I wanted my dad to be proud of me. I wanted people to respect me. Um, there was some deep seated hurts there, and so the best way I could do that was by being perfect. And I was the straight A student. I was the youngest leader in everything, from my church to business to school to the captain of the volleyball team, to being one of the top graduates from university, the youngest principal. Um, but it was never enough, and I was always chasing more and more. And now that's also a double-edged sword. There's also benefits, right? Being ambitious, being driven. I say that I don't suffer from ADHD. I kind of thrive in it, and so I'm always focusing or striving to get more and more. Um, but yeah, it was trying to find validation and getting comfortable with who I am. And I was doing that in the wrong way.
When did you realize it wasn't going to be enough?
That's a hard question because it was always like just I needed more, more. You would achieve something and then it like, oh, that's not enough. I need more. Um, I think part of it was finally getting my PhD, which I did at the same time that I was running 8 schools and multiple companies. Um, and then it was uh, all of that success still got to the point where my next relationship was falling apart. I was losing my second family, and I realized that you can gain all this stuff in the world, but still not be happy. And why was that? And then really starting to challenge myself to look deeper, take off those masks, and look at what I had sacrificed to get to where I was, and why. What was the reason behind that?
Yeah. You used the word achievement earlier. What did achievement give you at the time when you were chasing these goals?
Yeah, I mean, I think achievement gives you a great validation. It helps you feel like you're successful. It gave me great skills, opportunities to overcome. I think as leaders, we're never fully qualified for what we're doing. And we have to be willing to step outside of our comfort zone in order to grow. And I love that. I would jump into those kinds of opportunities, and then grow into them and achieve more. I always said, dream big, but achieve higher. And what I didn't know was the sacrifices that it would take in order to achieve that.
Some people might hear that and think these sacrifices are just the price of excellence. How would you respond to that?
You accept the cost of the sacrifice until you can't anymore. And um, like I said, it's easy to make those sacrifices when they're small things, like your physical health. Oh, I don't have time to eat healthy. I'll just grab something, through a drive-through, or I'll skip a meal, or I'll skip a workout. You start to sacrifice your relationships. Um, I think we're sacrificing a lot of our mental health, but we're not aware of it because it just happens kind of unconsciously. But our relationships with our kids, with our spouse, um, and we think that it's okay until all of a sudden that house of cards starts to fall down and the achievement isn't there anymore. You've got all this success, maybe you have money in the bank, but it doesn't matter because you've lost the people that you cared about the most.
Yeah. You know, to lighten the mood here, Howard, I want to transition to a little bit of a game we're going to play called principle or preference. So I'm going to give you a statement, and you just have to tell me if it's a principle you stand by no matter what, or it's a preference that can flex depending on the situation. And we'll
Okay.
unpack a few of them. Okay.
Principle or preference?
That's
Yes.
right. So, first one is leaders should always be accessible.
Preference.
Work life balance is achievable.
Preference.
Results matter more than relationships.
Yeah. I once believed that, but no, definitely not anymore.
So,
So
preference for you.
preference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Leaders should show vulnerability openly.
Yes, principle.
Discipline beats motivation.
Principle, definitely.
You should always put your team first.
Preference.
Now, that's one that I want to get into because I agree with you, but I want to know why it's preference for you.
Because sometimes it's your job to be the bad guy. You can focus, and we talk about this a lot in under master's level work about everything is about relationships and leadership. Um, but sometimes you have to make the right call is not going to be the popular call. And we look at this during COVID when we were all locked down and we had to keep schools running. Teachers were worried. They didn't. I was in China at the time. Teachers didn't want to be in China.
Mhm.
Um, but we had to keep the schools running, and so we had to bring people back or let them go. Um, Sometimes you have to make a decision between two bad choices. You're looking at a budget and you're short on student revenue, student numbers. You've got to make the budget balance. You've got two different choices. You can cut programs or you can cut people, or of course you can increase revenue. But um, yeah, and that's part of that loneliest seat that, we don't really realize until we're sitting in that principal's role or that head of school role where you have to carry this responsibility and you think so much about your team. When you have to let a teacher go, it's going to impact their life. Um,
Mhm.
but you have to do it.
Mhm. You and I are different there because my preference doesn't come from that because I think sometimes decisions that upset the people you work with are still decisions that need to happen and you're putting them first by making that tough decision. So for me, I'm a preference on it simply because if I'm not well, I can't lead my team. And so there's times where I go, I need to put myself first in how I plan something, do something, spend my day, because I also need to be able to show up for my team and give them everything else that I have. Right. So
You know,
preference for me, a little different from preference from you there, but it's interesting to hear your thought behind it. I'm sure after my statement too, I agree with what you said. You probably agree with what I said there a little bit. And
yeah,
so
but I
let's
mean, I'm so impressed, Tyler, that you know that already. Early in your career, you're still a young leader, I think, compared to dinosaurs like me who've been doing it for almost 30 years. But the fact that you realize that now, that's going to be so important for your own mental, physical health and your family. That's fantastic. A lot of us don't learn that until we pay the consequences.
I appreciate you saying that. I wish I could say I just have a really smart brain, but I think you're interview number 97, and I've heard that from maybe a good handful, 10 to 12 of these people that have talked about this. And Dr. Jody Carrington, a psychologist in Alberta, preaches that statement on teachers need to be well to make students well. And I think just through this channel, even it's helped me grow developmentally. And so, yeah, I appreciate the kind words, but it's the influence of you guys on the show getting to impart some of your wisdom with me. Let's jump into the next
That's so
one, though.
valuable, right? We
It
say
is.
that we
It's
stand on the
invaluable.
shoulders of giants,
Yeah,
and it's so true. We need to learn from the people who've gone before us.
that's right. That's so right. Principle or preference, transparency builds trust.
Ah, I'm going to say principle, and because I have a nuance on that.
Tell me your nuance.
My nuance is that your job is not to be transparent. Your job is to bring clarity. And so
Okay.
clarity is very different than transparency. Transparency thinks sometimes we overshare. We talk about all the different stresses, all the different factors going into a decision. No, our team doesn't need to know that. They need to know the clarity. What's
Mhm.
essential? What do they need to know? What are some of the factors that are involved in it? Where are we going to go forward? But transparency, yeah, we don't need to bring the chaos of our office into the minds of our team.
That's right. Not on everything. Although I am also a firm believer in reminding people it's my job to make the decision, but I'd love to hear their thought. Right. And so I
It's
think with that, just time and place with it. So I agree. Clarity is great. Principle or preference here, leaders should avoid burnout at all costs.
Yeah, principle.
You think for the leader too?
Yeah, because I used to say, right, I'd rather burn out than rust out. But the reality is when we burn out, we just can't be there for our teams. We can't do
Yeah.
the role. We can't do the job. And now I do think we have a responsibility to build our capacity to handle more and more. And that's
Mhm.
where we often fall apart. When we get into leadership, we have a good base, mental, physical health, relationships. Um, but as the job gets bigger, as the seat gets lonelier, as the responsibilities get heavier, and we start to sacrifice those bottom foundations, now we don't have the capacity to handle it anymore. And so, if we just continue on in that trajectory, it's going to fall apart. So we have to constantly focus on getting back to rebuilding that foundation, and that'll give us the capacity to carry more and to do more.
I saw a post online today, and I honestly read it and had no immediate thought or opinion, and it made me angry that I didn't know what to think about it. It was a rant by a current principal, not one that I even know. It just randomly showed up on my feed, and they were saying, when you ask a executive leader or a principal or a senior leader to fill in the gaps on roles that should be filled by other people, it's an unfair system because you take away their ability to do their job. So, like a classic example would be a school principal needing to cover supervision or a class because so and so couldn't go out and do it or wasn't able to or was sick and a sub couldn't come in. And their philosophy was that is not fair to the leader. They need to stand by that and not do it. What's your take on that? Because I read that and I understood it, but I also said I would always fall on that sword and do it for them.
Yeah, and I think maybe the difference is if it's long term or short term, right?
Mm,
I think stepping into the gap is really important. I think walking alongside our team is very important. I think,
yeah.
doing the supervision, picking up the litter on the playground, stepping in wherever necessary is important. I think we have to understand as leaders, though, we can't do everything, and fixing everything ourselves is not going to build capacity on our teams. So, long term, yeah, we need to figure out a better system so that there's other ways of covering it. Now, I remember this metaphor I heard when I was very a young leader, and it was from a pastor. And he said, leadership is like on a whaling ship. Um, And there's lots of people on a whaling ship that have jobs. You got the people that are, running the oars or in the engine room. You got the guys that are, holding the harpoon. You got the people that are steering the ship. And he said, like, well, as the leader, which job do you think is your job? And it's like, oh, well, yeah, you can't be rowing. Maybe you must be the one that throws the harpoon. He said, no, your job is to be at the top of the mast watching for the whale. And when you see the whale, you say when to throw. And I thought, wow, if that's a good point, because as leaders, we have to be looking for the opportunities, looking for the challenges, looking further ahead than just what's happening immediately. And sometimes we get so busy as leaders doing everything right that we don't have time to do the right things. As a leader, you can't do everything. There's too much to do, but you have to be able to focus on what's the most important thing to do and to do it in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. Breaking it down into smaller things and what's the most important thing to do today
Yeah.
and doing that every day. Okay. Last one here, principle or preference. Leaders should separate personal identity from their role.
Preference,
Yeah, I
definitely.
would agree with you. I actually think it's good for them to bring their identity to their role unless they're like a CIA operative and need to hide their identity. I think it's part of that relationship for people to know who you are and what you bring, and you know people like to see leaders with a little bit of emotion on them too. What's your take on that?
Totally. You have to be able to take off those masks.
Yeah.
You need to be able to be willing to be vulnerable. And that doesn't mean you need to overshare. It doesn't mean, I talk a lot about authentic leadership. Being an authentic leader doesn't mean because you have a temper, you have the right to let your temper out whenever you need to. No, but being
Hmm.
aware that you have a temper and your team knows and you address it and you put safeguards in place so that it doesn't erupt, that's being authentic. But just hiding behind authenticity or hiding behind a mask isn't gonna help us lead.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. And you hear high-end executives, high-end leaders say, "Don't bring your personal life into work, bring your work to work." And I'm a big fan of leave your drama at the door and show up for the team you're
Mm.
in and bring 100% to it. But I'm also a firm believer in, even though we wear many hats, you can't take your hat off and choose which one you're going to wear each day.
That's right. And I would also say, your team doesn't get the best version of you. Your team doesn't get the version you want them to have. Your team gets the version of you that shows up every day. So a lot of times we hide behind intention. Oh, I didn't mean to do that, or I wanted it to be this way, or I assumed it was like this. But no, our team gets who shows up every day. Our students get the teacher that shows up every day. If they had a fight with their spouse on the way to work, that's what's going to show up. Same with our families. Our families don't get the perfect father that we want to be. They get the father that shows up every single day.
Mhm. Talking about this, we've gone from what we stand on to the adversities that we maybe face and have to deal with. And so I think this is a good opportunity to jump into our next segment, our segment. And so we'll get into headwinds and tailwinds. Again, in the intake form, you mentioned a period where you were at risk of losing everything. And I don't want the summary version of that. I want you to actually take me in to a specific moment during that time and what was going on.
Yeah, so I was in a relationship where my partner was also my work partner. And so together, we ran multiple companies, we ran multiple schools, and then I also had my own schools as well, and we had created this network. And so when that relationship was falling apart, I was facing, losing 4 of my 8 schools, having to leave China. I had challenges to my reputation, and uh, losing companies uh, that we had co-owned and that we were managing together. And then on top of that, losing the relationship, losing the family, um,
Mhm.
losing the homes the homes that we had together. Um, yeah, it was a very, very dark time, and it definitely felt like everything was falling apart.
What kind of self talk were you giving yourself in the moment?
See, you did it again. And um, you don't deserve to be successful. You don't deserve to be happy. And um, yeah, this is all your fault. Right. And this overwhelming sense of guilt and shame. I should actually, call it shame that, you've hurt you've hurt all these people. And, I had had my first marriage fall apart. My kids were older at the time, but it still really, really affected them. And here I was doing it again and realizing that while I had hurt myself in this climb for success, um, I never stopped to realize how I was hurting other people. And then when
Mhm.
everything falls apart, then you're really confronted with it.
Just hearing you talk now, I know you don't have those thoughts anymore, or if they do, they're fleeting. When when did that start to shift for you to the mindset you now have about it?
Yeah, a lot of therapy, a lot of really confronting my past, and changing, my structure from achievement to acceptance. That I had to accept, the mistakes that I made. I had to accept, 1, that I was worth it, that I had inherent value in and of myself in spite of the bad things that I had done and the people that I had hurt.
Mhm.
Um, and you can't erase history. You can't change things. Um, you have to kinda sit with it and accept it, and then figure out how you repair those relationships and yourself.
Howard, I'm going to put you in the hot seat. I'll give you a scenario and you've got 30 seconds to put your first move on the table as a leader, okay?
Okay.
So you have a high performing team member that's burning out but refusing to slow down.
Oh, that's it? Ah.
Yeah, that's
Um,
it.
okay. Yeah. For me, this is like an intervention. You pull them in, you talk to them, you outline what's happening, you outline very specifically the behaviors that they're doing. One that's good, that's adding value, and how much you appreciate them, but you help them to play the movie forward to see what happens if they keep doing this and this and this. It's going to cause more and more consequences later on for them, and that you don't want them to do that. And so then I would be making executive decisions about how I would create boundaries for them to put up some guardrails so that they can find the time that they need to come back into being optimal and help highlight them. You're doing great right now, but it's a negative trajectory. You're operating at a 4 or a 5 out of 10. What will you operate at if we get you back to a 9 or a 10 out of 10? And then that'll help inspire them, I think.
Okay, so follow up here. How do you catch that your employee is on that path? And how do you bring them to realizing that too?
Wow. Well, you have to know your team. And to know your team, you've got to be out there walking around. You can't say you have an open door policy and then just sit at your desk and hope people are going to come find you. That's like a lifeguard that sits in the lifeguard station at the beach and hopes someone from who's drowning in the ocean is going to swim to the lifeguard station. You've got to get out there and know your team, connect with them. Not always evaluating them, supervising, no checklist, just connecting with them. Um, I mean, I
Mhm.
used to start every one of my admin meetings with, um, "Okay, which of our students are at risk and which of our staff are at risk? How are our kids doing and how are our staff doing?" Before we get
Mhm.
into the calendar, the events, the activities, and so even the team that I wasn't quite aware of, my principals or vice principals might know about it, and so then we're bringing that to the table as the first thing that we're talking about.
Mhm. And open door policy for me for the longest time was my door was open and I'm available for people as needed. And it's shifted recently to open door policy means your doors are open for me at any time to actually come in. and engage in a conversation with you and visit you. Um, that's coming from feedback around meet people where they're at and go to their spaces versus making them have to come to you. Because if you say you can come see me anytime, they're not going to come see you. You need to go see them.
Absolutely. I
So,
mean, this is we learned this early on as students. Nobody wanted to go to the principal's office. It
no,
doesn't change when they
yeah,
become teachers either. No,
yeah,
we've got to get out there. And yeah, for me, the open door policy means my door is open. I've got to get through it.
yeah. It's funny you say that because whenever I need to talk to somebody, if it's a teacher or even a kid, the classic, sometimes just for fun, you do the page to the office over the intercom and you just listen to the hallway go, ooh, as everybody thinks somebody's in trouble. And anytime I'm paging somebody to the office, then like 9 times out of 10, they're never in trouble. It's because I want to have a conversation with them. And I try to create my space as a place so that when that happens, people don't instantly have fear, right? Or, you bring it down to the principal's calling home. What's this about? And
Yeah.
sometimes I'm just calling to say hi and that your kid had a great day. And
Well,
you
and
need
we
to
often
build.
say this, right? If the
Yeah.
teacher calls home for about a student and it's the first time they've called and it's a negative issue, then we've already failed, right?
Mhm.
We had to have called home before that in order to build that relationship. And it's the same as us when we ask a staff member. We think we're being empathetic when we see the teacher on supervision and we say, "Hey, can you stop by my office, sometime today?" And we leave it at that. That teacher's worrying all day long about what this conversation is going to be about. And if you just
Mhm.
said, "Hey, can you stop by my office today? I want to just clarify a couple of things about your leave request." Or I want to
Mhm.
tell you about a student that I'm really impressed with or someone I'm concerned with. Wow, just that little bit of context will help them be reassured that what it's going to be about.
All right, next hot seat question here for you. You realize a major decision you made is failing publicly.
Yeah, you step up and own it. Take it on the chin. I'd shared this in my book. Typhoon Hato hit Hong Kong and Macau. It was the worst typhoon in 50 years. We had typhoons come through all the time. It's kind of like a snow day in Alberta. The school gets canceled, and by the afternoon, it's sunny and fine, and you're wondering why school was canceled. This time, it was the first day of teacher training. I had all my staff there, and I decided to keep going because we didn't have students. So school should just go ahead. Um, yeah, worst storm in 50 years. 20 people died. We had entire buildings that lost windows. We had kids, students, family members who were hiding in bathtubs in the bathroom, and they would come out after the storm, and the living room windows, patio doors are gone, and so is the sofa.
Mm.
Um, and I had to stand up that afternoon and say, I blew it. I put these meetings being more important than the safety, your safety and the kids' safety. And yeah, you've got to own it. Your staff will forgive you making a mistake. What they won't forgive is you being blind about it, not being
Mhm.
aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen that too. So, coming back to owning it, what is the risk if you do get something wrong?
The risk is that you don't see it, or you see it and you ignore it. You don't take ownership
Oh, I
of
like
it.
that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we're going to shift games here to a game called Flip the Script, where I'm going to give you a negative statement. Well, I think it's negative. I tried to make them negative. For all I know, they could be positive because some people said I like that statement, and then I actually liked them too. You can either accept the statement as true, or you can flip it into something that it actually should be because it's a horrible statement. Okay.
Oh, great.
Okay. So the first statement that I want to go through with you is leadership is lonely, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Leadership is lonely, but it doesn't have to be isolating.
If
And
you
that's the
slow
whole premise
down,
to my book.
you know what? Tell me about this book. We've mentioned it a couple times, and I was going to save it till the end. Tell me about it now because you just mentioned this is the whole premise about it.
Yeah, it's that we don't realize how lonely that chair is until you're sitting in it and you know so much. I mean, you know about the personal lives of your staff, your students, you know about the legal issues. Um, you've got to make heavy decisions and you can't share it with anyone. You can share some maybe with your team, your principals or vice principals, maybe your board, but no one carries all of it. You have to carry it. You just asked me what happens if you make a wrong decision. You're going to make wrong decisions, and it's going to impact people's lives, students and adults. That's a heavy responsibility, and I know for many young leaders, they don't sleep well at night because they don't know how to turn it off. They bring teaching, leading is such a personal endeavor. You can't separate the professional and the personal, and so the book is all about you being there and carrying that weight, and no one talks about it, and, the book is meant to help give us the voice to talk about it, and this is also why I work so hard on building a network of schools so that leaders have other leaders that they can talk to and connect with.
Mhm. Next one here. If you slow down, everything will fall apart.
The real test of leadership is how things go when you're not there.
Hmm.
So it's not even about slowing down, it's about building a system where you're not needed 100% of the time.
Yeah, you need to have the mentality of your job as a leader is to work yourself out of a job.
Absolutely. The
Because
best
one,
thing we
that's
can do
it.
as leaders is grow more leaders.
Yeah, that's right. And there's always like if you're good at that, you're not going to actually end up out of a job. your,
No.
your job's going to become a heck of a lot more fun because you are empowering and developing the people around you to share the load and to take more responsibility and to give more trust into them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
good
and
flip.
I see this because, we bring people to Asia over the last 20 years, and sometimes they spend 2 years with us, sometimes 5 years, sometimes 10 years, but we stay in touch afterwards, and they're going on to do amazing things back in Alberta, back in Canada, or in other places around the world, and it's exciting to have been a part of their journey.
Mhm. Okay, I think I know you're going to flip this one. Leaders have to sacrifice their well being to be successful.
Leaders will sacrifice their well-being to be successful until they can't, and they really shouldn't.
Do you like until they can't, or do you think it should be, but they don't have to?
In my experience, it's that we do it until we can't.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I'm really encouraged, Tyler, hearing the s- the parameters that you have set up around your leadership and wellness in your family. I think that's really healthy, and that'll help you have more capacity for greater leadership in the future. I think a lot of times, um, yeah, we don't learn that until the consequences hit us. So, uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
until it's too late and you realize what things could have been, right?
Yeah, and this is why that's why I have the book. That's also I do a program called Fit to Lead, where I challenge people to really look at their mental health, their physical health, their relationships, to start fixing that before it becomes a problem. And really, it doesn't have to be a 180-degree change. It can simply be, you've been sacrificing your physical health. What's one thing you could do this week that'll
Mhm.
help bring that back? Maybe it's going for a walk, maybe it's a workout, maybe it's joining, a friend to go have a coffee and just some downtime. But yeah, starting to choose some of that wellness aspects.
And last one here to flip the script on, you're only as good as your results.
That's a hard one. Um,
I mean, it's also kind of true, right? Like if you're looking at it as an athlete and we want to talk greatest of all time in things, what's the first thing we default to? How many championships has somebody won? How many MVPs have they won? Right?
yeah,
They don't look
yeah.
at they don't look
I
at but how much money have they donated to charity during their time in their career versus their spendings, right? That nobody looks at that.
Yeah. I think we have to understand the difference between externally and internally.
Yeah.
Internally, we have to come from a position of we have value, we matter, we're involved in meaningful stuff. Um, Externally, sure, the world is going to judge us based on our achievements, our CVs, our metrics on social media, as shallow as something as that is. But do those people really matter? Like, something tells me you care more about what your daughters think of you than
100%.
what the superintendent thinks of you.
100%.
No. You wanna obviously, you wanna please your superintendent, and you wanna bring him the results that, celebrates as a school board. But if you have to choose between letting down your daughter or letting down your superintendent, it you know, I think we'll be in a much healthier place where we choose our daughters over our superintendents.
Yeah. And I do think sometimes my superintendent listens to this and I want her to know, I never want to let you down either. Just putting that out there. Never want to let you down either. But yeah, no, you're right. I care a ton about what my daughters are going to think about me, and I care a ton about what my partner is going to think about me, and I actually care a ton about what I'm going to think about me as well. And
Yeah,
I,
that's
I
that internal piece, right? Like,
yeah,
we
yeah.
really need and this imposter syndrome is so real. We all think that we're the only one who's faking it in leadership. In reality, I think most leaders have a time in their life where they feel that, they're an imposter. And it's on one hand, it's a good sign. It means you're stretching yourself beyond what you're comfortable. If okay, I like to weight lift. If I'm always doing 3 sets of 10 reps of the same weight and it gets easier and easier and easier, I'm not going to grow until I put some more weight on
Mhm.
that bar, right? And then it's gonna be harder, and I won't be able to do 10. I'm only gonna be able to do 8, or maybe I'm only gonna be able to do 6, but I'm gonna get stronger, and then pretty soon I'll be able to do 10. Um, I think that's true in leadership as well.
Do you believe in imposter syndrome?
Yeah, yeah. I think we have a voice inside of us, a part of us, an inner critic. I think we are shaped, okay. I mean, I used to think trauma was bullshit, right? I used to think, come on, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I grew up poor and in a broken home, and I was able to do all this stuff. You can too. But I also know from my education, our brains as young people are so impressionable, so growing. They create pathways, and those pathways last a long time. Um, so I think we have parts of us that are that inner critic. We have parts of us that are hurt. We have sensitive areas that most of the times we don't feel it, but when someone pushes in just that one spot, it hits that hurt, that trauma, and we react. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think there is such a thing as an imposter syndrome.
I've always believed in like not being confident and not feeling prepared, but never that I've had to fake it. And it's such a common buzzword in education specifically is that fake it till you make it, right? And I've always been a fan of, maybe acknowledging you don't know what you don't know. So to me, I struggle with that word a ton because I don't see it. And I encourage the people that I lead to just admit like, hey, if you don't know something, that doesn't make you an imposter. It just means you don't know it and we have to learn it still. And that's okay because I didn't bring you into the job to be perfect at it. You're day one. I'm just wondering your take on that perspective.
Yeah, it's because you've embraced vulnerability. You took the weaknesses, or things you didn't know, and you opened it up. You were open to it. You didn't hide from it. And I think what happens is a lot of times we're so afraid of being found out that we don't know something that we hide it. And the more we hide it, that mask gets stronger and stronger. And then eventually, you peel it off, and there's an abscess there. So,
Mhm.
you've already embraced vulnerability, authenticity, and maybe it's a generational thing, or who was it, Tyler, in your life who believed in you? Who's been the one that spoke into your life to give you this openness and confidence?
Oh, that's my parents for sure. Yeah, they've
Yeah.
always they've always believed in anything that I could do, and they've put that on me and really drove home. If you want something, you can work hard and get there for it. Uh, a lot of it, I also would say my very first job I had as a teacher. I was actually at a Hutterite colony, and so my principal that oversaw me wasn't even there
Yeah.
all like at all. I think I saw them a handful of times, and Phil was amazing. And every time he came out, he did nothing but pump my tires and push confidence into me and make me feel like I was the most important person in the room whenever he visited. And
That's
so I
great.
took that and ran with it and said, I want to make other people feel like that, and I want to make myself feel like that. And so that's kind of where it came from for me.
Yeah. I
But
mean, the role
yeah,
of mentors, so important, and
yeah,
I think we need to bake this, officially and unofficially into our school systems, how we can have mentors for new teachers, new leaders. It makes a huge difference, and,
that's
I'm
right.
sure all of us can think of the mentors in our lives who spoke and cheered us on, even when we didn't feel like we were making it.
And I think they come and go for me in waves. I know some people have the same mentor for 30 years and that's their person and that's their go-to. And for me, it's always been well, I've just never been in the same location. I've moved quite a bit. I've been in different spots, different divisions, and it I think mentors can also come and go, and it's whoever's willing to be available and give you time and believe in you in the moment, right? My my leadership team that I work with right now has nothing but the utmost trust and belief in everybody on that team, and it's a phenomenal group to be a part of. And to have that feeling, it's something special because you feel like you can try things. You feel like you can admit you're not confident in something and somebody's not going to put you down for it. They're going to step up and help you along the way. And to create that system is something really important. But we're kind of getting into how we can actually go about actioning change and feel confident in changing something then. And so let's use that time to jump into our third element and let's get into ripples of change. Howard, you said you flipped your pyramid so that physical and mental health come first and work comes last. A lot of leaders hear that and think that sounds good, but it's not realistic. What broke before you made that change?
Well, obviously, with the relationship and the work, falling
Yeah.
apart, I was at a lot of risk. I was, deeply depressed, suicidal, um, and, uh, physically in a bad spot, and so I just had to start turning it around, and it got to the point where, the work had to take a back seat. Now, I still had all the responsibilities, I still had to, but I really pared it down to the essentials and started building time in for myself. I got coaches, like, as I said, a therapist, a support group. I also got a fitness coach who helped keep me accountable. Normally I would never have done those kinds of things. I always thought that was for weak people, and I was never going to be seen as being weak. Um, but when you're broken, it's a lot easier to realize that you need help and to accept help. And so, yeah, I got to that point and then started rebuilding. I was very fortunate. The advantage of focusing on achievement and workaholism is I was very successful, and I was able to step back and not be as involved at the schools on a daily basis. And I was able to work remotely at times, so I was able to structure my day, a little bit more than what a lot of people can. People that are grinding,
Mhm.
teachers and leaders, you guys get up, you get to the school at 7:30 in the morning, and you're not going home till 7 p.m. or so. It's a challenge, but we have to find little time slots in there where we're protecting our mental and physical health.
So this is like the 1,000-foot level of Howard. If we zoomed to the 30,000-foot level, what would somebody have seen you actually do and change to shift to the belief you have now?
They would, I hope, see someone who was much more vulnerable, much more authentic, now, at the same time, we also had to try to keep this somewhat private. We didn't
Mhm.
want, this was a huge organization, and going through a relationship breakup and changing leaders can cause a lot of instability. And so a lot of this had to kind of be done behind the scenes
Yeah.
until things were in place to be more public. And so there definitely would be a much more reliance on my team, um, bringing the closest people into a circle of trust so they knew what was going on and they could step up where they needed to. That helped out a lot. And you talking about your team and the safe space is really inspiring. It's that trust which makes such a big difference. So I think for me, they would see one, I started taking my physical health very seriously. I made sure I worked out every single day. I cleaned up my diet. I stopped drinking alcohol. Um, and then hopefully my interactions and reactions got a lot better, um, much more engaged at an authentic level, and not as, yeah, aggressively or as reactively as I was doing before.
If someone listening knows they're stuck in that achievement first mindset, what's the first uncomfortable shift you would suggest they need to make?
To take a moment and to think, if they lost all of that, what would still be left?
Mm, mhm,
Because ultimately we are going to lose it all. Whether we retire and we're no longer involved in all of these things, or we get sick, right? Our body fails us and we're out for a year or 2 years, or our relationship breaks down, um, what's left? And if all we're doing is clinging to the nameplate outside our office and the authority of the position, um, those things get taken away from us, and we need to confront the person in the mirror, because that person in the mirror is not going anywhere.
and I think confronting that person is easier said than done.
Mm.
Let's go a little deeper here. How do we do that?
I think you need a critical friend, a trusted friend. I think a professional is helpful at times to really challenge you on that. I think as leaders, we get stuck in our own heads. We get stuck in an echo chamber. Again, it's another reason why we need other leaders to walk alongside of us so that it gets outside of that echo chamber. But you need someone who can help facilitate those conversations, because our life is like a fire hose. There's so much stuff going on at the same time. We need someone who can intentionally dial it back for us and take us through it systematically to help
Mhm.
us peel off the masks and to start confronting the person in the mirror. And it's not to change the person in the mirror. That's the thing that I always thought was wrong, or like I always thought I had to do. I was always trying to fix everything. It's like, no, you've got to accept the person in the mirror. That's the
Mm,
first step,
yeah.
accepting it and being able to sit with it. You don't avoid negative feelings. Um, you realize that feelings are signs and that they're not always real, um, or not really accurate, but you have to sit with it and you have to be willing to, yeah, just sit there, accept the feeling, accept the reality, accept the person in the mirror. And then you can start to build on it.
I like that. And I think acceptance in change is one of the foundational things to move past change. And let's use that to get into our final element, our fire element and decision making. So let's jump into spark or burn. Alchemists, if you're listening on Apple or Spotify and you're enjoying this episode, it would mean everything to me if you head over to that platform quickly and give us a rating or a review. Giving those ratings and reviews help us reach more of an audience for the show. And that is the entire goal of what we're trying to do, impact. Thank you so much. You made the decision to write about the loneliness of leadership. What made you willing to be that vulnerable publicly?
It was the fact that in my network of schools, we did something called a heads council, and so once a month, I would bring all my heads together, and they could invite their principals and vice principals as they wanted to. Because one of the reasons we wanted them is for them to learn what it means to be a head,
Mhm.
and just the fact those conversations that they had really helped to resonate them. Now, I think in a lot of school divisions domestically, you'll have those kind of formal structures where principals will get together and connect. Internationally, almost every school is independent, and so it's very isolating, and you don't have your support groups, your churches, your friends that you had back home, in your new country, your new location. And so those conversations that were happening at Heads Council, um, really struck me as we are all experiencing the same thing, but we don't really get a chance to talk about it. And so,
Mhm.
writing the book was my way of just sharing my leadership journey and the challenges, and not glossing over it. We sometimes we glamorize leadership and decision making, and sometimes it's just a slog and it's hard. And that's what I wanted to highlight so that people could see themselves in the book.
Now, I thought it was still coming out, but it's already out. So I'm going to have to get my copy and give it a read first. But for those that have read it and connected with you, what has surprised you about how people have responded?
I was so reluctant to put it out there. I put it out to 5 or 6, well-known people to give an endorsement. I didn't think they would. All of them did, except for
That's
one
awesome.
person who just thought it was a little bit too short. And then I put it out to 15 people to take one chapter each and give me feedback on it and post about it. And then now people are reading it, and I guess they're saying thank you. I feel that way. I was in that situation. I feel that resonates with me, um, and it's reassuring to them that they're not the only one.
Mhm. I want to give you a moment here because books are, well, they're going to be available forever. And this episode is going to be available forever. And so if you have a chance to speak to somebody reading the book right now, wanting to share a message with them, what is something that you wish you could share that you didn't get into your book?
I think, I would want to tell them that they matter, and to thank them for their service and their willingness, their leadership. Um And I think sometimes we miss that. We're almost like throwing soldiers against the firing line, just take some more ground, take some more ground, take some more ground. And we need to recognize the inherent value in every person we have in our organization, in our team. Um, and I would just tell them, yeah, keep going, and that they matter, and that they're worth it.
I think that's a wonderful message to share. We're gonna finish the elemental segment part of this with our last game. It's called Final Answer. So I'm gonna give
Final answer.
you, yeah, I'm gonna give you two words, and we're not gonna get into them, but you just have
Okay.
to pick one, and it's
Okay.
gonna become the champion inverse another word, and we're gonna go 10 rounds of this and see what your final answer is. Okay? Okay. So your first two words I'm pinning against you, and you pick one: logic or intuition. Logic or speed.
Logic.
Logic or people.
People.
People or discipline.
Discipline.
Discipline or growth.
Growth.
Growth or humility.
Growth.
Growth or trust.
Trust.
Trust or clarity.
Trust.
Trust or adaptability.
Trust.
Trust or health.
Health.
Health is your final word. Why did that one win out of everything else?
Again, if you want to lead well, you need to be well. And I think trust is fundamental within an organization, within a team.
Mhm.
Um, but if we're not healthy, then that trust is going to be short lived. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think health, growth internally on an individual basis is so important. But what you talked about, trust, um, that's in between people. So, yeah, I
yeah,
think health, and we take it for granted.
we do.
We wake up every morning and oh, I got to get to work, or yay, I get to go to work or something. But we we should be thankful for the health that we have.
You are nothing without your health. Yeah.
Yes.
Howard, one of my traditions on the show is my previous guest leaves a question for the next guest, not knowing who they are, what we're talking about, or what we're going to bring to the table. The question left for you is, what do you think the characteristics are of a high-performing team and why?
A high-performing team has a deep sense of trust. Not that they all agree on everything, but they have the courage to be able to disagree and to bring multiple perspectives and to generate a better solution as a team than what they would do individually. So trust is there, commitment, courage, clarity. Um, yeah, I would say trust is the most important aspect.
What is a question you would like to leave my next guest?
I think I'll do the same question that I asked you, Tyler, earlier, and that it's who was it in your life that spoke into your life and gave you the confidence um, to help you become the person that you are today?
There are leaders listening right now who feel like they're not enough for their role they're in. You've been there. What would you say directly to them?
I would say that you matter. You are doing the best job that you can with the information and the time that you have. And don't be afraid to step back, hit pause, and focus on yourself, because then you will be stronger, you'll be healthier, and you'll be a better leader because of it.
Howard, I really appreciate the honesty and depth you brought into this conversation. I think a lot of leaders are going to see themselves in your story. And thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Tyler. I really appreciate it. You're a great facilitator, great questions.
Thanks for sticking around to the end of the show. If you have feedback, a suggestion, or just want to start a conversation, fire off an email to tyler@elementaleducator.com. I actually read them. And if this episode sparked something, leave a review on Apple or Spotify. It helps more leaders find the show. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, where I put out additional content. I'll see you next time, same time, same place.